When dealing with a falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
To those listening live or to our patrons, welcome back. For those listening weekly, welcome to the Shift to Reason Radio, the Brainstorm production where we take current events and important skeptical topics and try to analyze them critically. Today is June 22nd, 2018, and I'm Cory, and I'm joined by Angela.
Hello.
Lisa.
Hello.
Destin.
Mucho gusto.
And, of course, the always amazing Dave.
Look at me, I'm Destin.
I'm going to unplug your fucking mic.
Take it easy. Take it easy back there.
Stop insulting my people.
Before we give him a chance to say anything else, let's get into some science.
Before we give him a chance.
If you base medicine on science, you cure people. If you base the design of planes on science, they fly. If you base the design of rockets on science, they reach the moon. It works. Bitches.
Yes, science!
My story is, I thought it was quite interesting. I found it, I think I got it from Monster Island. And it's from...
Oh, dear.
I love Monster Island.
It's not as bad as I thought it was when I first saw it.
Monster Island or the article?
Well, the article.
Okay.
Because
Monster Island is worse.
Yeah, it's always worse than you. Yeah. It's the worst possible Facebook group.
and like most of our listeners will have no idea what we're talking about.
No, that's true. Although we reference it sometimes. Argument group on Facebook.
Rabbi.
Yeah, that's right. Troublemaker. So this post is from medicalexpress.com with no E on express. So I was a little bit skeptical of the headline, which is researchers find IQ scores dropping since the 1970s.
Because you need an E, right? Without the E, you don't really believe it.
Medical Express with no E seems like...
It's like extreme. Extreme. With an X, right?
Yeah, it seems a little dubious. So I Googled it and I looked around, and there's actually quite a few news sources that were reporting on this. Like there was an article in Time, there was an article in this techtimes.com.
Fake news.
CNN reported on it. So
definitely fake.
Definitely fake. So I found the real study and I read as much as my non-scientific brain could analyze, but I got through a bit. It was from the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America.
Well, that's a real journal.
That's
Is that a pay to play?
The official scientific journal of the National Academy of Sciences.
That's a good one.
With an impact factor of 9.661. And
I don't know what that means, but it's a real journal.
The second most cited journal across all fields. According to the wiki page.
I don't buy it.
I call bullshit.
So it's a legit paper.
I feel like it's not real, so we don't have to listen.
Journal. And so I'm going to read the abstract quick here. It says, population intelligence quotients increased throughout the 20th century, a phenomenon known as the Flynn effect. Although recent years have seen a slowdown or reversal of this trend in several countries. To distinguish between the largest set of proposed explanations, we categorize hypothesized causal factors by whether they accommodate the existence of within-family Flynn effects using administrative register data and cognitive ability scores from military conscription data covering 3 decades of Norwegian birth cohorts from 1962 to 1991, we show that the observed Flynn effect, its turning point, and subsequent decline can all be fully recovered from within family variation. The analysis controls for all factors shared by siblings and finds no evidence for prominent causal hypothesis of the decline implicating genes and environmental factors that vary between but not within families. So what does that mean?
Well, it means that instead of being nature, it's all nurture.
It heavily implies that environmental factors is the cause of these changes. They looked at the IQ scores of about 730,000 Norwegian men.
That's a pretty small sample.
Although it's all men. So I don't know if that can make...
Seems like it would be like all the Norwegian men. Like how many Norwegian men could there be? Like,
well, yeah, I don't know.
That's a lot of Norwegian men.
Norwegian men. All born
I think in Norway, they can, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's no other males around, can't they just just become male if they need to? Isn't that Norwegians?
They can be born men if there's no others around.
are you thinking of a different species of like dinosaur or something?
Aren't those Norwegians?
Norwegian men born between 1962 and 1991. They found that the scores grew by nearly... That's a lot of Norwegian wood, Gothic Alex just said.
So true. Can we play the Beatles in the next break?
If we had it, eh?
But now you have a title, right? You know, all this important
lot of
stuff.
Norwegian
Lot of
wood.
Norwegian
That's right.
wood.
All right. So they found that scores grew by nearly 3 percentage points every 10 years for those born between 1962 and 1975. But for those born after 1975, the scores went down. One of the co-authors of the study, Ole Rogeberg, I said that wrong.
He was one of the Norwegian men.
Yes.
He is a Norwegian man. That's my man.
He figures that this shows that the IQ decline is due to environmental factors and not genetics. Quote, it's not that dumb people are having more kids than smart people. It's something to do with the environment because we're seeing the same differences within families as outside of families. There's a lot of speculation that this could be a complete reversal of whatever was causing the Flynn effect, but there's a number of unclear, like they don't know what the environmental factors are. There was a number of hypotheses presented. Quote, it may be due to changes in the educational system or that it reflects a change in the media environment. If people used to read books more, but now they're watching television more or going on the internet more. So I don't know. There's quite a bit of, I guess there was quite a few good articles on it. I'll provide like 6 links or something, as well as I will provide a share link to the actual study. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Not much more to it beyond that. It's just the headlines give you the impression that IQ, quote unquote, IQ are going down since the 70s, when really it's more like the headline of like the title of the paper was more like, we're showing that IQ changes have more to do with environment than we thought. Or
this IQ changes. It seems like the IQ score is going down is a well-established thing, actually, coming into the paper.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, apparently.
Interesting.
The thing is, the IQ test is based off of like certain object recognition, and I'm sure we've all taken a number of them.
Right.
And I think the way we view the world now with technology, our use of our cognitive abilities has shifted to the point where it's no longer about math, because we don't have to do math anymore. You don't have to know how to fucking spell a word or know which word to use, as long as people understand what you're trying to get across.
Don't you mean ducking?
Yeah.
Gothic Alice asked in the Discord chat, I've heard that they increase the standards for the IQ test over time. Does this study account for the changing standard? And I didn't see anything that actually discussed changing standards. it was generally other environmental factors, like you say, like education levels or watching television more.
There's also different types of IQ tests. Like there are the standardized European ones, which are the hard ones, and then there's the American ones that you could fucking do with a crayon. When I first saw this, my instinct was, of course, the IQ is not dropping since the 70s. Like the average IQ isn't going down, but apparently it is. And that's just, it's a matter of understanding why. So,
because the tests are really old. And I mean, we're evolving and past that. And
but I feel like if these kind of easy things that we can all as lay people kind of brainstorm here at this rec table, I feel like these people very smart people who study this stuff for a living would have already thought of this stuff and figured out a way to.
They've controlled for a lot of things that,
it just sounds like they really just don't know, which is interesting. Yeah. That's science, right?
That's right. And as with all studies, they go, we need to look at more. We need to study.
Do we have more money? No. Okay, I guess we're done.
Yeah. One thing that I found was interesting was that, earlier studies also came up with similar results. A study conducted by researchers in Britain found that IQ score is falling by 2.5 to 4.3 points per decade since the end of World War II. I didn't look that study up. I haven't read that, but that was in one of the articles. So.
Well, maybe if you were born in 1942, you'd understand.
Yeah, maybe I would.
Just saying.
Well, technology's made it a lot easier for us to not have to think, and we don't have to think quickly.
I just wonder if, sometimes
That's total supposition, though. I'm just saying.
Right,
we don't know.
Yeah, sometimes
that's all we can do.
We really talk about IQ as though it's almost meaningless in many ways because it measures certain things.
Your ability to recognize patterns.
Yeah, but my understanding is that amongst researchers, this is actually a metric that they actually think is valuable. It's not that it's like, that I don't know.
I don't know, yeah.
But I don't think that they do know why.
No. Doesn't appear to know. They don't appear to know why. It's changing.
Darn scientists don't know nothing.
It's because of the fucking Democrats.
Did you know that science used to say the earth was flat?
No, I did not know that. I was born in the 80s, not the 40s. If I had been born in the 40s, I'd be smarter.
Therefore, all science is debunked.
That's correct. If science doesn't know everything, therefore science sucks. Lachlan said he liked my Irish accent. Maybe he likes my whatever that was accent.
Your redneck accent?
My redneck accent.
You're supposed to say testicles in an Irish
that was your regular
accent.
voice.
But then
I always knew we needed somebody who could do accents and could do characters, and Lisa's our person.
No, I could be, but that's to the detriment of the whole podcast. So.
I just thought she does the angry divorcee all the time. I thought that was her favorite one.
Fuck you.
See?
Oh.
Well, you walked into that one.
Yeah, I did. Fuck you.
I'm just a better stay-at-home mom feminist. That's all.
Gothic Alex
Mominist
posted in the Discord chat something from the Wikipedia on the Flynn effect. The Flynn effect is the substantial and long-sustained increase in both fluid and crystallized intelligence test scores measured in many parts of the world over the 20th century.
What about the Destin effect?
The Destin effect.
We're going to name the tendency of people to get dumber the Destin effect for sure.
No, but the ability for our podcast to get derailed.
Yeah. When IQ tests are initially standardized using a sample of test takers by convention, the average of the test results is set to 100 and their standard deviation is set to 15 or 16 IQ points. When IQ tests are revised, they are again standardized using the new sample of test takers, usually born more recently than the first. Again, the average result is set to 100. However, when new test subjects take the older tests, in almost every case, their average scores are significantly above 100. So this study is probably looking at the raw score, not the standard score. Interesting.
Well, you'd have to, otherwise you would find no increase because you're normalizing to 100 every time.
Yeah. Yeah, so so it wouldn't work out.
I would assume they figured that part out. I'm going to give them that much credit. But what we're seeing is the opposite of the inverse Flynn effect.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
I just want to say, Lachlan, it's not testicles in an Irish accent. Irish people don't say testicles necessarily. They say bollocks.
That's right.
Bollocks.
We're having two different chat conversations going.
And they're both bollocks.
They're both bollocks. All right. Let's hit some religious nuttery.
Cornerstone, this might be new to some of you. Scripture says that even our righteous deeds are as filthy rags to God. So even the good things that you do, even things like feeding the hungry and clothing the poor and taking in widows and orphans, as nice as those things are, if not done from the place of obedience to and a relationship with God, are completely worthless and disgusting to God. If you're not daily walking in a place of relationship to God, then the news that we have to bring you is that you're on your way to hell right now.
I still hate that fucking bumper.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
It's infuriating.
It is. All right. Angela, what do you got?
So some people did a study, and apparently we religionless folks die sooner than religious people. According to a study done at Ohio University. They looked at 1,500 obituaries. 1,500 and across the U.S. And according to their study, religious people lived 5.
I feel like that word needs to be in quotes.
I think that pause before study kind of denotes that there were air quotes intended there.
Yeah.
But it's according to what they studied, because I don't know, it seems like kind of a small sample, and they noticed like in Iowa there was a lot more religious people, therefore they posited that potentially people who live in really religious areas
have a longer lifespan.
It has an extra effect.
They live longer than the guys they burn at the stake.
How did they decide if somebody was religious or not from an obituary?
Well, because your obituaries include religious affiliations, marriage details, activities, hobbies, and habits that are not otherwise included in census data. Well, and that's the thing that's the question I had when I was reading through these articles, because I mean, marriage has been shown to extend life and stave off disease if you're married.
Just makes it feel like it.
Just makes life feel longer.
Sometimes it can feel longer. Yeah. Okay.
Imagine if you were married to a not nice person.
Yeah,
right? Hell.
Just imagine.
I don't know.
I just
married
feel
to
like
a good person, so
I feel like.
So is it like?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
You interrupt, and you apologize. I love it.
You go ahead. No, you go ahead. Okay, so
Canadian stand-up.
Imagine.
I don't apologize.
One day
I just interrupt people.
You have approximately a lifespan of like 75 years. And then you get married, and the next day you have a lifespan of 80 years. Just like that. Is that how that works?
That's how that works.
Why do you eat all that fat stuff? It's bad for you. You should eat these Brussels sprouts. You'll live longer.
People, this is statistics, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the thing that, because obituaries are often like, they talk about the halo effect being a thing because because of recent Pew studies, Pew studies being done, talking about people that go to church, and there is that halo effect. Like if somebody, just random person on the street asks you if you go to church, you might say yes, but you don't actually go to church.
Okay, but your family writes a thing about you in your obituary. They might, like, especially if you're living in a very religious area, they might hype up your religiosity more than,
totally.
you know, and they might not say, oh, well, Uncle Bill didn't really believe in God, but he went to church for the Nanaimo bars and the, you know, because Aunt Helen made him.
I don't know
about
you, but I always go to church for the Nanaimo bars, and that's it.
I'm just saying.
I just want to say, I'm 43.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus died at 36.
Bam.
Bam.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Fair.
Oh, he was very religious.
That's fair.
He was super religious.
So according to that 5.6 years longer, they
That's a lot.
statistically controlled that for marriage rates,
Like if we,
and it was, I think it's like 2 years less if you weren't married.
Okay.
Like if we did, if we're researching a cancer drug or treatment and it extends life by 6 months or a year,
is that
people shit their
significant?
And it actually, the amount of time that it would extend it by wouldn't indicate statistical significance or not. But if it turns out the results were statistically significant and it did that by, say, 6 months, everyone would shit their pants and do that new thing.
Yeah.
If you gain like that much time. So to gain 5 years is pretty nutsoid. That's a really big result.
Are they comparing it against people that on Sundays would like jump out of airplanes and smoke crack?
It's just,
like,
it seems like they're
where's their
alluding to
sample
that,
for
maybe.
atheists? Like which atheists are they talking about?
I really have to see their selection.
And what was their selection of like they had a few from across the U.S. and a whole bunch from a specific area. So I mean, it just seemed like their sample size was irregular and inconsistent. Mm-hmm. And they also, what I wanted to also mention was volunteerism and participation in social organizations only accounted for less than a 1 year longevity boost. Because some people think that, well, just because you're religious,
right?
You know.
So in a sense, they feel like they corrected for the community building angle of it.
Yeah. And I think for those of us like that consider ourselves atheists, like the philosopher dude, a tippling philosopher, talks about how secular humanism is more of a focus because that is the community building aspect more so than atheism is. And the other thing that I wanted to mention too was that shit, I forgot what I was going to say.
No, that's all right. Something that because this article or articles much like this came across my Google updates I got 20, 30, 40 a day for like 3 days because every Christian site on the planet was sharing this study that proved religiosity extended their lives.
Even if it's true that
5 years
being
diaper
religious gives you 5 diaperless years extra than everyone else, that doesn't mean that what religion is teaching is correct.
It doesn't make it true.
It doesn't make it true. It just...
And I remember what I was going to say. They suggested that maybe the people that consider themselves religious engage in more stress-free behaviors. Like they're more stress-free. They have less anxiety. And they don't participate, like you were referring to jumping out of airplanes, etc. They thought that maybe because they're religious affiliated, they don't participate in those negative habits.
Or they're more privileged people. They have more money.
Well, that's something else.
Sundays.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yep. Ditto.
All the good car salesmen do.
Everybody's got to work on Sundays.
Actually, I never
you get the people that are tire kicking after when the dealership's closed. So it's a good way to get customers that way. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a reach. Like you said, a lot of religious groups are like, "Hey, you guys, you'll live longer," but I don't know.
It's like some sort of like weird Pascal's wager.
Right. Right.
Still doesn't make.
It's not making it so God figures you out. It's just like you'll live longer if.
Well, I think it's just...
Isn't the point of church to go to heaven sooner?
I mean, it might be a little while ago now.
Heaven's Gate Church, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Kool-Aid Church.
But we covered one that was like a while ago about how it made you cooler. Being religious was cool. Being an atheist was uncool. And
they're both uncool.
And at the same time, we had the same basic result. Like we were like, it doesn't make it true. It doesn't matter how cool it is. It doesn't matter how much longer you live.
Well, and
it doesn't make it a fact.
Who's approving these studies for whatever? Like one thing that I've thought of recently is the mental health of people that work from home and don't have a lot of social interaction. That I think about that because I work from home and I don't have a lot of social interaction with my coworkers. it's usually, and I mean, 6-year-olds make really shitty coworkers.
So selfish.
But I am.
Not you.
6-year-olds.
6-year-olds.
Although I have seen it argued that some people prefer working at home because then they are less stressed out about human interaction. And
well, I'd be interested to study the effects either way,
right?
And just whether and set something up and just look at that, because we are social creatures.
Not all of us. Some have ridiculous social anxieties.
Well, I think even if you have social anxiety, and I'm speaking from somebody who has social anxiety, you still need some kind of interaction. Even if you have anxiety in social situations, there's still a need, and you get satisfaction from connecting with somebody else. I think whether those relationships are different, whether you have one-on-one conversations as opposed to going to a party, and that is anxiety inducing for myself. But even phoning somebody or texting with somebody or, going for coffee with one person, those kinds of things, if you have social anxiety, are way less threatening. So, yeah. We need to connect. I'm a bit of an idealistic person with that, in that way.
So what do you think? Are we going to live shorter lives because we're atheists?
You are.
Possibly.
I think the study is questionable. I think getting whether or not somebody's atheist or not from an obituary is questionable. From an obituary,
I don't think
the numbers are not very big. I find it very questionable.
Because you're not writing your own obituary.
But,
as a rule,
I think this is very. I don't know. I don't find it very compelling.
So we're unconvinced.
I'm unconvinced.
I need more information, and I need longer answers.
They're not specifying which religion either.
No, they're definitely not.
Like, if I go to a place where they worship volcano and throw people in, those people live shorter lives.
Well, if you're doing the throwing, you might live longer. Yeah. But if you're a virgin, you're probably gonna be fucked.
No, that'd be the opposite of that.
But not in the way you would like to.
Okay.
Next.
Good stuff. All right, Gumby, what do you got?
This is the first story I've gotten in a long time.
Mm-hmm. A long time.
And it's the first story out of most of the ones I've gotten that I actually found really funny. There is a study done to determine what God looks like. So psychologists at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill studied the biases of 511 American Christians to determine what they believed their God looks like. The result? A white-haired dude whose face looks like a combination of every youth pastor I've ever met.
Nice.
You can't see the picture right now.
I want to see.
Is there a calf tattoo?
What the hell is that? Was that printed with like a 1980s dot matrix?
Only black and white.
Yeah, it's crap. It's crap. But he looks like a surfer dude named Chad.
Oh.
He has frosted tips, doesn't he? He's got frosted tips.
The researchers came to this police sketch of a god by showing participants hundreds of random face pairs. So face pairs are samplings of like lips and noses and stuff. The participants were asked to choose the face from each pair that looked more like God to them. The researchers were surprised to find that despite centuries of art depicting God as an elderly, wizened old white man, people lean towards a younger, softer visage. And their biases about what he looks like reflect their own political views. Liberals saw a feminine God, while conservatives saw a Cheeto. Saw God as more of a hard ass.
Make me crave Cheetos.
Hot people saw a hot God. Young people saw a young God.
Really good.
And the participants' own race was reflected in God's features. It's published in the journal PLOS ONE, PLOSONE.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Here it says the final result is that God looks like a guy named Todd. God plays his acoustic guitar at annoying times. He owns at least 3 pairs of rainbow flip-flops.
God,
he wants you to be safe, so he'll let you drink High Life in the church basement just this one time. And obviously people's tendency to believe in a God that looks like them is consistent with an egotistical bias, which we've always assumed since Christians are predominantly white, and somehow Jesus is white even though he came from the fucking Middle East.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All dragging that cross around just bleaches your skin, I guess. So yeah, I thought it was
Christians
pretty funny.
are mostly white. I mean, worldwide, I don't know if that's actually true. Obviously, there's a lot of African American Christians in the States, but even like in Catholic schools, it's all like Filipino kids. Like, there's so many Filipino Catholics. Like, anyway, I'm just saying.
Sure, and the bias is towards your own race. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, you said we know that Christians are mostly white. That's what I was taking issue with.
Here, I meant here.
That's not what you said.
So you should have understood what I was trying to say.
Do you guys remember, in the 80s, there was you guys probably don't remember this. There was a cartoon.
We're older than you.
There was a cartoon in the 80s called Gummy Bears. You guys remember Gummy Bears? I remember the bad guy was like this guy with this black mustache, right? And he wore like chainmail and shit. That's what I thought God looked like when I was a kid. I don't know why, but the bad guy from Gummy Bears is totally what I thought God would look like.
That's terrible.
Why?
What were the berries they ate?
Because God's the bad guy.
That's scary.
The gummy berries.
Gummy berries, yeah.
Weren't they? And they bounced.
Yeah.
And they would make like juice from them. It was
That's
like
true.
it was their juju, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
These balls.
I remember that cartoon.
So awesome.
But
the guy that voices Baloo was in it.
You could only get it when I could only watch it when I was at my grandma's house because she lived in town and we didn't get that channel on the farm.
Oh my God, so funny.
So I could only watch that every now and then.
Big city people with all their channels.
all their channels. They had like 12 channels and I had like 2.
Yeah, that's the half the
reason one of them was CBS.
Oh my God.
I babysat
CBC.
so that I could watch more TV.
I remember I would be I'll tell Matt, I'd be like, oh, so do you remember Pro Star cereal? I remember had Wayne Gretzky and Michael Jordan on the cover and stuff. He's like, no, I don't even think you could get that in Swift Current.
Misanthrope in the Discord chat says, I still remember the Gummy Bears theme song. Someone please sing it.
Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. High adventures is beyond compare. They are the gummy bears.
I remember it too.
You're wrecking my microphone over there.
They are the gummy bears. What? I'm amazing. What the fuck are you talking about?
Can't handle that much awesomeness.
Oh, jeez.
This is why people at work are like, oh, I totally want to listen to your podcast. I'm like, no.
Don't. You'll not respect me anymore.
Our fair city's famous because of Jimmy Fallon.
Say what now?
That Jimmy Fallon posted did that thing about terrible songs.
Oh.
And that song, Experience Regina.
Oh, jeez.
The video is just so much better.
I have not seen either.
I'm surprised you haven't checked that out.
I'm not cool.
We were talking about crappy 80s stuff at work. We were talking about Body Break with
Hal Johnson and Diana McLeod.
Hey man, I met Hal.
They're still doing shit. They're still making some videos.
We were trying to remember the Stay Alert and Stay Safe kids.
Stay alert. Stay safe.
And they usually play one after the other.
Yeah.
Right? I just can't remember what channel it was on.
Do you remember that
CBC,
ad?
Wasn't it?
I think so.
Do you remember that ad for the...
I can put my arm back on.
Yes!
So play safe.
We found that on YouTube last week.
I'm a robot.
And you
so good.
I know.
So bad at the same time.
So amazing.
That gave me nightmares.
He deserved a TV series.
Really?
That gave me nightmares, yeah, for real.
Oh my God.
I actually really like to show my kid video, commercials from back in the day. I showed him the Barks commercial. What do you mean Barks has bite? Johnny? What do you mean Barks has bite? Johnny? Remember that one? Remember that one? I showed it to him. And he was saying it for days. I was totally.
Or, what's up?
That one I've not shown him because I don't hate myself.
That was fun at the time.
Yeah.
But looking back, I'm like, oh no, that was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful.
We were actually making fun of 80s commercials today too. Justin said, what happened to the commercials? Like in the 80s and 90s, it was all just color and extremely quick movement.
Yeah.
Like every commercial in the 90s was like Power Thirst is now. Like,
yes.
I don't know.
It'll give you energy legs. They were all like monster truck ads, basically.
Yeah.
Monday.
Right.
Cherry Cola.
All right. Let's go to Woo Report.
I'm not a scientist, but if I can tell you your science sucks, then your science really sucks.
That just makes no fucking sense. I mean, it's just bullshit. Fuck.
All right. So I've got an easy one from SciBabe.com. Tattoo artist Kat Von D cites vax concerns about injecting chemicals.
Kat Von D.
Irony meter explodes.
Fuck basically Kat Von D.
The entire article.
I couldn't even remember who she was. I saw it posted on Facebook, and she's from like a reality show that does
LA Inc.
tattoo thing.
Who is also super famous for all of her makeup stuff.
Okay.
More than anything else.
Well, she started off on LA Inc. and got famous for a variety of things over time. I mean, it was a very popular show.
Jen actually, Jen was a big follower of hers. Like loved her makeup. Because all of her stuff is like not tested on animals. A lot of it's like mostly vegan stuff. And she's like a huge proponent of, veganism being nice to animals, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff that's good. That I'm not that familiar with. And then as soon as that came out, she's like, well, fuck. I can't respect this person anymore. I just return all her shit, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was, Gothic Alice just said, I just heard about her anti-Semitism. And she has said some pretty shitty things in the past. And like, she was like dating a guy who put on a Nazi uniform and did, I don't know, whatever. at some Hollywood party. So, but yeah. So, I mean, Kat Von D, tattoo artist, also scared of needles.
Yeah.
It's ironic.
No, but also like, the toxins in the vaccines.
Yeah.
When what do you use?
You're putting ink under people's skin.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And you have it all over yourself.
Well, and this is a person that supposedly researches a shitload before she launches her makeups, make sure that there's nothing harmful in it. Why can't you just look at what's in a fucking vaccine and realize that none of it's actually harmful?
Yeah, it's interesting because she posted on Instagram about this stuff and she's like, oh, we get flack for being vegan and we get flack for being this and we get flack for being that and like using a midwife instead of a doctor. And I'm like, okay, so whatever, vegan, I don't care. Okay, midwife instead of doctor, that's your call. I may or may not I would not necessarily make that same choice, but that's fine. This vaccination thing is not the same thing as those. Like this is
actually the home birth thing is just almost as bad because you're putting yourself and the kid at risk.
But a home birth doesn't, like having a midwife doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do a home birth, right?
Nope.
Lots of people use midwives.
No, but she said she was going to do a home birth.
Oh, I see.
And drug free.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which again, I don't understand why somebody would do that.
That's 100% her choice though.
Yeah.
She's the only person who suffers there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like medically speaking, she does it is riskier to have a birth at home. True.
Yes.
But there's nothing, I mean, like, I don't know. I think the risk it is what it is, right? Whereas with vaccines, there's no benefit to not vaccinating.
And you're risking the populace around you.
Whereas so there's no, I mean, I don't think scientists or science anything particular to say like home birth versus not. Okay, it's riskier, but it's not, it is what it is. Whereas vaccines, like, no, get a vaccine.
It's hard to make, it's hard to condemn somebody like on a moral level for like, okay, you take your risks, I take mine. We all live in the way we live, but not vaccinating
risks
other kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even my kid who's vaccinated is risk because vaccines they don't have 100% efficiency or effectiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there's like that herd protection as well, right?
Sure. Well, and the resurgence of something like fucking smallpox, which, no, not even use smallpox, use something else. When it mutates enough, then the vaccine is ineffective anyway.
Yeah.
So fuck Kat Von D.
So fuck her.
That should be the name of the fucking episode.
No, I'm still sticking with lots of Norwegian wood.
Yeah, I think that's
a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Lisa, it's your turn.
Oh, me. Yay. Okay. So, Cory has so lost faith in my ability to read articles
that I gave you YouTube videos.
He gave me 2 YouTube videos.
Oh.
Did you watch them?
I actually did. And the funny thing is, because they weren't, I don't want the app. Go away. Oh, it closed it on me. God damn it.
Okay, so we have no faith in you being able to watch YouTube videos.
No, I did watch the YouTube video. Now, but because, they weren't like articles you can read, I couldn't just read them during other people's stories. So I had to watch them earlier today.
Time.
Sure, on my own time, not at work, because that would be wrong. So anyways, I watched both of them, required a total time investment of 7.5 minutes. Thanks a lot, Cory. And, but to be fair, I have several degrees in physics, so I already knew the punchline of them, so it was okay. So probably the best one would be, from a person on YouTube called Physics Girl. And the specific video is, are perpetual motion machines possible? No. Next story.
Next story.
So, I mean, she does a better job than me because she took 5 minutes and 4 seconds. But, basically, and the other link that Cory sent me was an example of a quote unquote perpetual motion machine.
Right.
So I think if you're like a woodworking kind of person and you kind of enjoy making a little machine that rocks back and forth because it's kind of cool, and you can call it, you could probably, if you wanted to search for such a, instructions for how to make such a thing, you'd probably search perpetual motion machine. But there's no actual such thing as perpetual motion machining, meaning something that can continue to operate and move. God, I'm allergic to it. It's terrible.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
I have to keep that in.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I sneezed if he edits it out. Anyways, yeah. So the idea of a perpetual motion machine is a machine that doesn't actually require any energy to be input into the system. There's no loss. But there's always loss, typically from friction. So, I mean, you could just, any of these videos, you can watch it and the penny like rolls back and forth. Well, there's heat loss from friction as the penny rolls.
The video at some point.
And it doesn't really matter. This is just not,
They pick the penny up after 30 seconds and they're like,
it's just,
see, it lasts forever.
Yeah, it's just conservation of energy. You can't, She did in the video. She talked about those, those bird things that like they got like liquid in them and they dip in the water and they dip up and down. Anyway, so she kind of explained how those work and how they get. There's a specific, I can't remember what it is, but there's a specific fluid inside the bird that absorbs the ambient heat in the room, and then it expands and it causes it to go down, then it cools, and it comes back up, and blah 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 blah. So anyway,
is it mercury?
Huh? It's not mercury. I would remember that.
Just kidding.
But yeah, so there's not a perpetual motion machine. It's getting energy from so a perpetual motion machine would have to be like a closed system, like it would work in space or whatever, and no, that's not a thing. And she talked about how patents in the past, people would put in a patent for a perpetual motion machine. And then I think she said the U.S. Patent Office just started saying like, no more perpetual motion machines unless you built it and it works. So now there aren't any, shockingly. So I feel like there was something about perpetual motion machines in the news, like some advanced physics thing where the physicists said, I don't know, this was like a few years ago. Anyways, no, it's not a thing. It's very easy to say no.
The first link was sent to me by Packard from the Packard Polksat podcast.
Okay.
And he was like, I'd like to see what Lisa has to say about these.
Oh, the first one.
Yeah.
Well, you could see, so that one it kind of was like a elaborate teeter-totter with some balls, like, just like 2 different rubber balls that were like kind of rolling back and forth, and one would roll one way and then the other one would fall and then cause it to roll the other way or whatever. It's a cool little design. If you like enjoy woodworking, by all means make such a thing. But I mean, just looking at it, the balls are rolling. There is friction loss, heat loss. It cannot possibly operate perpetually. It's just not a, there is certainly loss. So,
yeah. You could even see it happening in the video. Like,
could you? Okay. But I mean, it's still a cool little doohickey to make. It's cool. Yeah. Make that by all means.
That being said, a perpetual motion machine isn't impossible. It's just ridiculously improbable.
Based on our current knowledge of the laws of physics, it is impossible.
Right. Based on that.
Yes. So in the improbable event that the law of conservation of energy is false, then...
Or we find a way to circumvent it.
Which would make it false. If you break,
laws of physics aren't like laws of like, like, oh, human rights. Like they're like, there's no subatomic particle that gives you human rights, right? You all decide you have human rights and then you do it and you can break that or not, right? But laws of physics aren't like that. They are like real.
Yeah. No. I understand how laws of physics work. I get it.
Okay.
I like the way you said that though. That was very good. They're like real. Yeah.
Well, there's like whatever, a physical basis behind it. You can go searching for a quark and find it, sort of thing. So,
yeah.
But so in the event we were to discover that the law of conservation of energy had exceptions.
Okay, fine. Exceptions.
So one example that would be like an evaporating black hole, like Hawking postulated. So you have a black hole, and so the idea so we think that particles suddenly, like a particle antiparticle pair will just suddenly appear in space and then kind of annihilate each other. Okay. Like this happens all the time. We don't notice it because it happens. We it's just a thing that happens all the time. That's something that's postulated in cosmology, I guess.
Interesting.
But Hawking said, well, if this pair happened right at the event horizon and one was created on the inside of the event horizon of a black hole where nothing can escape and one was created on the outside where things can escape, then one of them might escape, the other one might not, and the black hole starts evaporating and losing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's losing energy, it's losing mass and
cohesion.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really a violation of conservation of energy. In fact, you're conserving it but the particles are coming out of basically nothing.
Interesting.
But that's because nothing plus anti-nothing equals zero. Anyways.
Right.
Anyways, I thought that's kind of cool.
It's kind of like if you have zero, like a nothing plus anti-nothing, but then the anti-nothing goes away. Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
And we don't know for sure if there are places where the laws of physics are different.
Sure. There's no evidence to suggest that any theory that says that the laws of physics are different, say on different scales or anything, has any validity. Like, for example, people use something called MOND. There's a theory called MOND that says, well, you don't, because you'll hear physicists say all the time, oh, the universe actually has way more dark matter than regular matter. There's all this matter out there we can't see, like that's not lit up, and we're pretty sure there's got to be dark matter there. Well, then some people came up with a theory that says, no, gravity just works different on larger scales, and here's the math behind that. And that people actually, like I was in grad school before they were finding evidence against that. So I don't think it's totally decided, but I think the evidence is pretty strong that there is dark matter. So something like MOND would be an example of a theory where physics is different on different scales. But I don't know that there's any evidence for that.
Okay. So we're at what would be Leo's story.
I did Leo's story too. Okay. So you read an article. I did. I read 3 articles.
Good stuff.
I'm mainly going to talk about one of them because I found it was the best summary of everything. So, this is on Friendly Atheist, pathos.com. Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop is now using misleading scientific labels to appear legit. So, who is I guess this is the Friendly Atheist. Okay. So they were excited when they heard that pseudoscience brand Goop, created and promoted by actress Gwyneth Paltrow, was using, quote, for your enjoyment and, quote, rigorously tested labels, among others, to promote scientific transparency among its, quote, wellness products. But as it turns out, that's not really the case. So, as you may recall, Gwyneth Paltrow's company Goop has received a lot of bad press over things like jade eggs in the vag, coffee enemas, but the company is now worth $250 million, apparently. I don't even know how is this even possible?
I don't know.
Anyways.
They voted for Trump.
This is the universe we live in.
Recently, so they've been
we can't have nice things.
Yeah, they've been criticized as for all this stuff. So they've decided to add these labels to their products. So the labels are as follows, and they have definitions. Okay, for your enjoyment. There probably aren't going to be peer-reviewed studies about this concept, but it's fun and there's real merit in that. This is Goops.
This is real merit in the
fun.
This is Goops. This is Goops. Sorry,
let me start. The labels, an egg-shaped piece of jade.
Yes.
Up your vagina.
You know what?
So much fun.
If you find that fun, by all means.
True.
Just don't expect health effects from that. I'm not going to jade egg shame no one.
So it's not going to remove negative energy from my vag.
No, if that's what you're worried, that's what you're trying to do, that's not a good reason. But if you simply find it fun, I say go nuts. True. I'm just saying. Anyways, so this is Goop's labels. Noted. Yeah, so the for your enjoyment label. The ancient modality. Quote, this practice is nearly as old as time. Many find value in it, even if...
No.
Hey, people! Let me read things. Many find value in it, even if modern day research hasn't caught up yet. Parentheses, it's possible the practice will never attract its attention. So this is Goop's second label. Third label.
Makes my eye twitch.
Speculative but promising. There's momentum behind this concept, though it needs more research to elucidate exactly what's at work. Next one, supported by science. There's sound science for the value of this concept and the promise of more evidence to come soon that may prove its impact. And finally, rigorously tested. The validity of this concept is pretty much undisputed within the world of MDs, DOs, NDs, and PhDs. I don't know what a DO or an ND is.
ND is a naturopathic doctor.
Oh, what's an DO?
Doctor osteopathy.
Okay. Anyways. So, and as the,
Dr. Ross,
as the friendly atheist points out, basically this is useless without even pretending to be science, useless masquerading as science, useless, but we can link to papers about it, and not useless. So they basically, only the last category is what any legitimate organization would actually use as actual evidence-based practice. So this may look like an extremely small step towards scientific accuracy, but the site doesn't make it clear that the majority of these categories and their products are not supported by science. In fact, they often put the blame on the scientific community, suggesting the experts simply haven't, quote, caught up yet.
Right.
Yeah. It's also bizarre to claim there's, quote, momentum behind a concept that, quote, more evidence is coming soon when no such guarantee exists. And furthermore saying, quote, there aren't going to be peer-reviewed studies on certain concepts downplays the idea that those products may have already been definitively shown not to work. Typically, there are follow-up studies if scientists think something is promising. So, like jade eggs. Just saying. So, one of our, not friends of the show, but people we love on the show, Jen Gunter also had a couple of blog posts on this, and she is not happy, for similar reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a sufficient summary. Did I do okay?
Good work.
You did great.
I read the articles. I'm even Leo. I don't have the voice, but I can only do so much.
You did so well.
Thank you.
You did so well.
You're welcome, everybody.
Thank you for doing this.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's interesting. So I feel like, they do this kind of thing to just try to like make you think that they're doing something, but they're totally, they're just,
it's all fraud.
It's all just bullshit. Like, it's an ancient remedy. Nobody's ever going to look into it. Like, which means it's bullshit. Like, if things aren't bullshit, they get looked into.
Yeah.
Like, they're.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right.
Bah.
Totally.
All right, Dave, let's cue that outro music.
Alrighty.
For everything else, you can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net. Thanks to our financial supporters, Janet, Stephanie, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Bassett, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Bob, Glenn, Destin doesn't suck that much, Magnus, several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave, Positively Skeptical, Rob, Julie, Chris, and Larry. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. Or you can go and buy some stuff at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. You can join us as we start live shows back up again on brainstormradio.net in August. August 31st is our next show. And our guest will be B.J. Mendelsohn, author of The End of Privacy, which is a book about the end, like online privacy and the ways in which our data is used. I want to thank Matthew for joining us. You can find his stuff at facebook.com/TheRealCredibleHulk. So make sure to check that out. Thanks, Dave, for our intro music. Thanks to Aaron Rabbi from the Embrace the Void podcast for doing the intro voiceover. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Kapper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff at loststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. For live listeners, stick around for the after show. You can go to brainstormafterhours.com and listen to the bonus content before it goes patron only. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.